Penny Maybe, and I am with a consulting firm called Enviro Issues, and I'm part of the consulting team that's going to be working with the county on the design of the Murray Basin CSO combined sewer overflow facility. And for those of you who've been following this project for a very long time, welcome back. Glad to have you back. Here we are with a new project manager, new community relations person. Let's see, new consulting firm, new everything. But a lot of new faces, but the same project. So there's still a few of us tonight. I think we're going to be pretty informal. We have a short presentation for you, and really we're here to give you some information, to introduce you to the new faces, talk about the community's involvement as this project moves forward, and sort of let you know what's coming, what to expect, and how to interact with it. I think we can be pretty informal about questions as we go. So if you have questions as we're going through the presentation, just stick your hand up. And if it gets too unruly, I'll do my job as a facilitator and rein us in, but I don't expect that to happen too much tonight. So I don't think I'm going to go over the agenda. I think we're just going to launch right into it. Let's start with introductions.
My name is Erica Jacobs. I'm the project manager, King County Wastewater Treatment Division.
And then,
hi, I'm Doug Marsano. I'm the community relations lead for the project.
and many of you remember Martha Tuttle, and Martha has retired and is off having fun now, I think.
Greener pastures.
Greener pastures, right.
I'm Dan Pekka. I'm with HDR Engineering, and I'm the project manager of the consultant side.
And we also have,
And I'm Heidi Stoll. I am the backup for Doug, replacing Martha. So I'm going to be doing community relations on the project as well. So if you can't get a hold of Doug, you can certainly reach me.
Some people prefer to reach her first, but I would ask you to go through me.
and another member of the consultant team tonight.
I'm Eric Bergstrom, also with HDR Engineering. I'm the lead technical engineer.
And
I'm Lauren Spenslin, and I work with Penny, and I also do community relations with all the other folks.
right. So what we're going to do tonight is you're going to hear from three different people. You're going to hear from Erica, and then Dan, and then Doug. And so why don't we just launch right into it? And we'll just take questions as we go.
Okay, so I can turn it around and just go through myself. Casual about it. I'll stand closer and more casual too. Okay, so first is just as by way of introduction, I wanted to talk to you about, give you some information about what CSOs are. What are we talking about when we say CSOs? Yeah, that's right. And then we'll get into the specifics of what we call the Murray Basin, the basin that serves or feeds flows to the Murray Pump Station at Home Beach Park. We'll talk a little bit about the CSO control facility that we're going to be designing and building. And ultimately, really here to focus on the community involvement and community participation opportunities that will be coming throughout preliminary design and design on this project. So to start with, unlike the newer suburbs around our region and most parts of the country where they built storm drainage and sewer systems in separate pipes, older cities like the city of Seattle originally built their conveyance, their pipes to carry both stormwater and sewage. And probably when they first designed those systems, they had adequate capacity to carry even peak stormwater flows. However, nowadays, with so much growth and population increases that we've had, these pipes just no longer have the capacity to convey these flows when we have heavy weather events. And what happens when we exceed the capacity of the pipes is that we have combined sewer overflows. And that's actually by design in our system to prevent the sewer from backing up into homes, businesses, and the environment where we actually would have access or contact with it. But the overflows do go out into the Puget Sound, and they do carry toxins and actually disease-causing pathogens. It's mostly stormwater when the overflows occur, but obviously it's the sewage as well. So King County is working to become in compliance with state law, which has a standard for untreated overflows to be limited to no more than one on average per year. And I'll get into the specifics of Murray in a moment, but Right now, we're focusing, our highest priority is to bring into compliance and to control CSOs at 4 Puget Sound beach locations, and this being one of those 4. The county's also embarking on, or has just produced a long-range plan for control of all the remaining CSOs in the county, and you can find that report available on our website. And if you hand out in your slides, you can find a link to do that report online. Okay, so the area that you see highlighted in blue is the Murray Basin. All the flows that come into the sewer collection system that drain down to the Murray pump station come from this blue area. And they also come from the Barton pump station, which brings flows from downstream, from upstream to Murray. So the Murray pump station has on average about 5 overflow events per year currently, and that results in about 5 million gallons of untreated sewage going into Puget Sound every year. So our project's intention is to bring that facility into compliance with no more than 1 overflow event per year on a long-term average. And to do that, we need to build a 1 million gallon underground storage tank near the pump station. This project will also include an odor control structure and a backup standby engine generator, and those will both serve the existing Murray pump station as well as the underground storage facility. Okay. So drilling down a little bit further, and I don't know if you can see this a little bit better in your handout of the presentation, but I'll walk through it. It's all on the slide. So the site that was selected for the project, you can see highlighted in yellow. That would be the location for the underground storage. And there's another yellow rectangle that you see on top of that, and that's just merely representational. It's not that we've decided to place a structure in that location or be that shape. It just is there to represent that there is going to have to be a structure that will house the odor control facility as well as the standby engine generator that I discussed. And it most likely will need to take up a footprint of roughly 3,000 square feet. So the placement of that, the size, or the footprint of it exactly is not yet been decided or decided. And we will engage with the community about that. The green area on the opposite side in Holman Beach Park is our existing underground pump station. And there's potential for us to site what we call a diversion structure on the west side of the existing pump station in the park. That would take the flows when it does overflow and divert them into the storage tank. So, and on the far side, east side of the site, where you see a yellow outline, there would have to be shoring and a foundation wall there. A retaining wall, I should say. Okay, so before I go on to the timeline, are there any questions about CSOs in general, or the need for the Murray storage?
Just a general question. So I understand to the south of the Murray Basin is the Barton Basin, and to the east is portions of that are Barton as well. Does the Fauntleroy, I guess the Fauntleroy Creek is in the Barton Basin. Is there any impingement on Longfellow from this basin, or is it all flowing west?
I'm not sure. I think it all flows west. I could find out specifically.
Well, I'm curious only because we've learned so much in the process, and I think the hydrology of West Seattle has become of general interest to a lot of folks. And the more we understand where our street impact and things like that are, and what we're directly, because when you cross over certain streets, it says welcome to Longfellow in the watershed, the same with Fauntleroy Creek, but we've never had a really good, in King County, I think, is in a really great position to provide like a hydrographic map of West Seattle, where all the flows are actually going, so that those of us that live in the various neighborhoods can actually begin to pay attention. And that's just a public pro bono kind of thing. It doesn't do anything here, but I think it would help us overall in the process of keeping things from getting into the sound. So I call it a kind of an awareness question.
That's a really good point, that we actually can probably provide the at least the sewer system, drainage, maps of pipes that flow in that particular
Yeah,
basin
and
tributary.
not even that level of detail, maybe just what are the boundary streets for the actual water flow? So we now know this is Murray Basin. I actually, as it turns out, I'm in the Murray Basin political area, but I'm in the Barton Basin flow area. So I would not have thought that until I saw that map. And I think that's where other people might have some interest is that, I see the Longfellow Creek sign, but I'm actually flowing into, maybe Schmitz Park or something.
I'm wondering if maybe the city of Seattle might have some.
I think between the two of us, we could probably.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's just along the lines of more awareness. Like we spent a lot of time talking about green infrastructure, and now I think we primed the pump for that. And this would help continue, that consciousness, if you will.
It does provide important context too.
It does,
That's the
right.
sort of thing
So
about
you can be across the street from a neighbor. I mean, you learned that about City Light. I happen to be across the street and had no power, and everybody else had power. Grid. So this is kind
It's a
of
hard
like
way to learn that.
learning a little bit about the basics.
Yeah, we can look into that and see what kind of information we can put together to
Thanks.
present. Okay, so, that, I will move on to discussing the project timeline with you. And it's on this board too, so I'll bring this over a little closer. I don't know, you can probably see it better on the slide.
That one's a little different actually, Erica.
It's
This
a
one
little
is.
different?
that
Okay, so
one's
you'll talk to
part
that
two.
with more detailed specifics, okay. I'll stick to this one then. So earlier this year, King County completed the SEPA environmental review for this project, as well as for the Barton project, by the way, at the same time. They were conducted in the same SEPA. SEPA stands for State Environmental Policy Act. And it's a required environmental review. It has public comment period, which we did do. We sent the SEPA checklist document out to the entire neighborhood surrounding the Murray Basin, and we had worked closely with MOCA and communicating that at the time. And we received several comments. So that process had completed in May, and at the same time, work was underway to complete the facility plan for this project as well as for the Barton project. That was a required document by the Department of Ecology. That has now been submitted and approved by the Department of Ecology. That sets up the need for the project, describes the details of the project moving forward. So now we have commenced the preliminary design phase of the project and hired services of HDR Engineering to support us in that. And that'll go, it started September 1st, they're officially kicked that off. And it will conclude at the end of February 2012 with a final pre-design report and 30% design drawings, which are just very preliminary design drawings, but they do form the basis for further iterations and finalization of the design. Right now, while we're in the pre-design stage, there's going to be a lot of site assessment work, geotechnical boring. Some of that is already going on in the neighborhood. And those near neighbors will receive flyers and notices for that work that's occurring. Upcoming, probably close on the heels of the geotechnical work, will be other soil sampling, things like that, that help us form the basis for the design and give us necessary information, regardless of how the facility ends up looking or feeling on the site. This is just basic geotechnical information that's required to help us define the constraints in the site, the soil conditions that we'll be designing to. Also concurrent with all of that, we've begun the permitting process and, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Question, I did
What
say.
happens if you find out in your boring and so on and so forth that, oh my gosh, despite our best intentions, we can't put this here?
Actually, we probably won't find that kind of information
Oh.
because what we know from historical data, the types of soils that are roughly generally in the vicinity, the boring gives us the exact information about how deep various strata of soils actually are. So it gives us information to support design for
The foundation design, the design of the support of the tank. Remember, the pump station is there. A lot of geotechnical work was done at the time that was built. There's information out there. This is just a confirmation of that exact area. When you're designing a structure, you want to be sure that you're getting to the right geotechnical conditions to support the structure.
It's to help us, exactly design the foundational elements.
How far down do you anticipate it to go?
That's
The facility or the borings?
No, the tank itself, how do you do that?
Preliminarily in the facility plan, it's about 40 feet deep to the bottom of one side of the tank. There's a lot of input into operational desires, requests.
I've got a reference point that is valuable that I discovered the other day. The two water towers at Myrtle, I think the smaller one is 650,000 gallons and the larger one is 800,000 gallons. But if you look at the larger tank, that's roughly the volume of space that needs to be under the ground. It's round and cylindrical, but it gives you a sense of the volume itself that we're talking about.
Well, we do have a lot of water there.
Yeah, that's actually another thing that the geotechnical explorations help us determine is dewatering requirements and standards for the region.
So I'm going to ask everybody to speak up because we now have some really interesting ambient noise
That's
going
right,
on.
that is kicked on, so.
I think it'll kick off.
And so far, are you all able to hear me? I just want to check in. Okay. Okay, are there any other questions before I move on to the rest of the project schedule? Okay. So, as I was saying, permitting is also going to begin concurrently with all phases of the design. We start some of the preliminary work towards identifying the required permits. And then in final design, it's really when we start submitting the applications and having the design defined enough to know exactly what we're going to be moving forward with and what the needs are from a permitting standpoint. So we are also planning in the spring through summer of 2012 would be the timing of the structures that are currently on the site, for which we are now in the process of acquisitions. They need to come down, and the reason they need to be taken off the site is that by that point, the properties will have been acquired and the tenants will no longer be living in there most likely. So it's not a very positive situation to have the building sitting empty in the community. But also, we need to be able to clear the site, stabilize the site, and do more geotechnical work that is right in the location of where the deepest excavations will be. And currently, we just do not have access to that physical space. And that information is critical during design, and it helps set up the conditions and the requirements and the specifications of the construction contract. Okay. So then in, so in March of next year, we'll begin that final design phase, and it'll go through December of 2012. And the important thing to point out is that for the Department of Ecology, we have a regulatory requirement under our permit to complete final design on this project by December of 2012. Not only to complete the design, but to have ecology's approval of the final design. And we also have a regulatory requirement to begin construction on this project in 2013. So it's an aggressive schedule to meet. It's a little bit more aggressive than a normal timeline for a project like this. It's doable, and that's why we're here early to talk to you all, because it's very important that we get community input into the design of this project early on. I want to return your attention to the pre-design area on there where you see several stars. The stars represent the big points at which the community's involvement is going to be critical and have the opportunities for interaction and helping us formulate the design. Pre-design is the important time because this is really when we're setting up the design concept, how it's going to move forward. By the end of pre-design, we should fairly well have an idea of the situation of the facilities, how they're configured, some of the aesthetics and so forth, which would be refined later on. But most of the critical thinking and decision-making happens during this early phase. So Doug will be talking to you a lot more depth about specific opportunities and timings of the community involvement. But the last line on there, just construction that will start in 2013, and we anticipate it will be about a 2-year period, finishing in 2013.
What other projects have been going on in that area that will be in the construction of specific areas in Market Street? This is obviously going to impact traffic.
Right, yeah. And the traffic impacts of the construction will be thought of in depth during the final design stage, and we'll work with the community to talk about haul routes and staging and things like that.
So do you think there will be some overlap between the two projects with regard to construction and traffic and that type of thing?
There could be. The Barton CSO project is located in the neighborhood further up on the hill.
I know, I live in kind of, I have
I think there'll be a lot of coordination and we need to figure out between the various construction activities, what the auction all that's going to be.
Because you're going to be moving trucks through a lot.
Right, and the main arterials that come into the area are going to be the worst, and once we get close to the project site, they'll diverge. But
So Barton won't have any dirt hauling out though, will it?
I think they'll have very site specifics and quantities. I'm not exactly sure how they'll do staging or all of that, but as you know, they'll be building green stormwater infrastructure, rain gardens. So as they move through those neighborhoods, the quantities I think that they'll be handling and storing at any particular time are going to be small.
There's also the coordination with the Barton Pump Station project, right?
Yeah. Right, and the same for construction of gardens.
It's similar, and I think you're right that there probably will be a need to coordinate and better prepare the community for what to expect from both projects. You know, the timelines do seem to be concurrent. This is also something as far as haul routes that has to be done through SDOT and through some other projects, or excuse me, through some other project management capacity. So there's going to be a chance to think about these and to refine them, and we'll certainly be involved with the community up front on that work. So I think the best we can say now is we recognize the same concern, and there's time to think about it.
And that's a good point about SDOT, because they're going to be looking at these projects all together too, and these are the kinds of things that get stipulated in our permits. So and that happens during the final stage. So we will be engaging with the community to go through all those questions and concerns at that time.
Can I go backward 2 slides for the actual site map there?
Yes.
Actually, the one with the yellow
That one,
block, yeah.
okay.
And maybe this is an HDR question. So those houses on Othello that are behind the area, is the excavation going to do anything to weaken the structure of the ground under those homes? And are you all looking at, monitoring? I'm talking about the 5 houses at the bottom, not Murray Street extended, if you will.
So to have the condos above the ridge.
Yeah,
No, are you talking about the condos, or are you talking about the homes and the flats?
The homes literally south of the area.
Yeah, now I don't, we
Are
would,
those condos?
No, there's
Where the white retaining
Yeah,
wall and then.
exactly. So that's Murray Street extended, or Murray Avenue extended.
and actually, I don't even think, I think what you see up against the unimproved right-of-way there
Right.
actually is more just cribbing as opposed to a full retaining wall. So I don't anticipate, we'll definitely be looking at that with this.
I'm only concerned because we had a really big issue on Beach Drive. Many of us are well aware of a construction job up a hill that supposedly did not have any impact, which has now led to a 2-year shoring with Jersey barriers and continual wet road and really bad situation for bikes and cars. And Lord knows we don't need that to happen in another spot.
So the house that was on that site is really down the hill.
Oh, is that
There are
right?
5 houses there, so.
and we've recognized that's been one of our main focuses, actually, is that southern boundary and protecting the southern boundary of the site.
And it's also my understanding that where Fauntleroy, where the parkway comes down to the junction of 48th and Beach Drive, that was actually a fill to fill that road to come down. I mean, do you have information on how they filled that to construct Fauntleroy Parkway?
We have historical photos all the way back as far as we can get them, and we're going to
You're
bore.
shoring it up, but what was put there?
Well, yes, well, that's why exactly, we have 2 borings that are going on Lincoln Parkway immediately above the site. That, we have 2 borings going right there that are scheduled for probably next week. There's some traffic control things. Next week or the week after, you'll see the drill rig on that hill right there doing 2 borings. And that's exactly the intent, is to determine what's there.
I think we're at the point where I'm going to turn it over to Dan to talk a little, this is the slide that's next. Yeah, just a little bit about how flows are working in relation to coming into the pump station, when it overflows, how the storage tank comes into play.
This is a pretty high level discussion on this, as you can see. Well, what basically happens, where you see the arrows going into Murray Pump Station, that's what's happening right now. So your flows that are entering Murray, going into Murray Pump Station, and they're pumped downstream to, basically, it ultimately gets to West Point. So in a standard today, like today, without a big storm, that's what's happening. The flows are going into Murray, they're getting pumped on downstream conveyance and onto West Point. If, at the present day, if there's a huge storm and the conveyance system downstream of Murray or Murray Pump Station itself is overloaded, it overflows through the outflow there on the left. And what that is the 5 events that Eric had talked about. Those are occurring at an average of 5 times a year over the long term. So what the intent of this project is to capture that before it makes it to the south. So the diversion structure will capture the flows before they go through that overflow to the south and divert the flow into the storage tank. So at that time, when the storage tank starts to fill, and it's starting to fill, if the conveyance downstream of Murray becomes available, then the flow of the storage that's in the tank, flows that are in the tank, will be pumped out and back into the system to be treated at West Point again. So what you're going to see is flow going at a high storm event going into the storage tank and then being pumped back in the system. Now, if in the event there's a very large storm and the storage tank is full and the conveyance systems downstream are overloaded and our Murray can't handle it, you're going to get an overflow to the south. That's the one event per the regulations that are allowed. So in essence, that's really the whole, in a high level look, that's what's going on here. In addition, as Eric had talked about, we also are going to be doing an engine generator and odor control. Because right now the Murray Pump Station has a portable generator that comes on in the event of an outage. Now they'll have the on-site generator to handle that. And then the odor control is an improvement on what's there for both the pump station and the tank. Anything else, Eric, I missed?
So, I'm just looking far downstream, I think that way. So I presume when you cut over the 2 systems, it's going to be in the dry weather of summer.
There's always intent when you're working on these combined systems.
We're in Seattle.
There's always,
Plus our climate is changing.
yeah, exactly. In contract documents, there's the wet season and the dry season.
Right.
Typically, in every contract you see around this area. And the intent, at least as engineers, is whenever we do work on these combined systems to switch over, we're always hoping we can do it in the dry season. And that's,
We're only talking 5 events, so per year, that really tax the system.
So how do you technically tap into the existing system, just the high level? Like you build the new storage tank, and you have the new pumps, and you have the new diverter valves, and then at some point you actually break ground, plug into the already existing system, or?
What's been identified currently in the facility plan, and that's what we're looking at. Are there other ways to construct this? The diversion structure box that's shown there would, in theory, be constructed on the outfall pipe after it leaves. It overflows out of the existing wet well to the outfall.
Okay.
The idea that was presented in the facility plan is to build that structure on the outfall pipe. So it would overflow first, then before it actually reached the outfall, it would be diverted, go through a pipe that would go back underneath Beach Drive to the other side of the street.
And that's all gravity fed at that
And
point.
the idea is that would all be completely gravity fed. There's no operational gates. Those are things that we're looking at is that, balancing that with cost. But right now what's been presented in the facility plan is purely gravity system.
yeah, and so you're not tapping the light.
Right, right, that was.
Right,
yeah.
right.
You're tapping an outfall that's only active 5 times on the average.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to get into a lot more discussion on the opportunities for community participation in the design, and Red Marsano is going to walk you through this.
Sorry, a little aggressive. First, I just want to say thanks for coming out. I know there's a lot of meetings, a lot of work, or a lot of other things to do on and I appreciate you being here. It's important to us that we involve the community early because this project team is committed to building a facility that can serve the community protect public health, clean up Puget Sound, but also become an asset for the community. And that work is going to be much easier for this team if the community that cherishes this park and has been invested in this process to date is involved in the process moving forward. So thanks for being here. This is the first of many opportunities we'll have to talk about this project. I just want to run through those opportunities today. So first of all, some folks may have already noticed that we've begun site assessment, as Erica mentioned. We've done flyering about that work. We have been using email and mail and the blog to notify people about these public meetings. All that will continue. What we're really going to use to convey specific information and to work with the community to design this facility in a way that fits with the neighborhood is what we basically are calling a design advisory group, which is a public process. There are members attached to a certain faction of the community, park users, near neighbors, all West Seattleites, but to ensure we have a broad perspective of community input, we have asked people to serve and to work with us on that. But this is a public process. Anybody that's interested in coming to a specific meeting can. And as Erica mentioned, those meetings, most of those meetings are going to occur right now in preliminary design, because that's when we're making the big decisions about where pieces of equipment can fit and work and be reliable for the operations and maintenance staff and complete the mission of the facility, but also can do it in a way that is commensurate with what the community is thinking about the facility as an asset. So saying that, I want to turn you over to this handout. I didn't put it up as a slide because it's a little bit illegible, I think, on the slide, but it's all in your packet there. And it's also on this board, so I'm going to work off this board. I mentioned earlier that the pre-design is the key time, and that's where we are right now. The DAG, is the Design Advisory Group, will convene for the first time on October 25th. And that's just going to be a get-to-know-you session. It's at the Fauntleroy Schoolhouse across the street. It's next Tuesday, starting at 6:30. Anyone is welcome to come. Again, that is just a get-to-know-you session. The first real sort of back and forth, I think, on what this facility can be occurs next Saturday. Not this, a week from, October 29th, at the Gatewood Elementary School. We're going to have a design workshop where the project team, Dan, Eric, other people that understand way better than I do how wastewaters flow and interact with their surroundings, will be there to work with the community on some basic conceptual design elements on how this facility can lay out in a way that will allow it to become an asset for the community. And these are important considerations because the decisions we make early about how these things are placed and where they're placed and how they're situated really will then inform the architectural decisions, the landscaping decisions, what other amenities we can have above ground that the community would find to be a benefit. So this first meeting on the 29th is a really important place to start that discussion. A few weeks later, in November, we'll have the charrette is another word for the design workshop, the charrette open house. And that's where the community will get a chance to see some of the initial design concepts that came from that work and then some other work that the team's going to do that will be informed by the community's work at the design workshop. We'll show those initial designs, and then the DAG will meet again to talk about the technical needs of the odor control and backup electrical generator needs. Again, that's to give people an idea of the size of the project's needs so that we can understand the size of the facilities, what type of odor control we expect would be best for this facility, those kind of considerations. And Dan's working on, and his team is working on providing some technical information that the community can review, and it's just to basically inform the community on what the sort of scope of the activities need to be for these facilities. After that, in December, we'll work on green building and architectural themes. And that by then we should have a better idea of how things may lay out. And if we do, then either way, but if we do, we'll be able to talk a lot more clearly about what kind of above-ground presence this facility can have. There's no escaping some sort of above-ground facility. There's a stack, for sure, that has to come out to vent the gases and the odor air, the foul air that comes out after it's swept by the odor. Anyway, the point of this is that there's got to be some above-ground features. We can talk about how to do that. And then the final one in January will be a release of the pre-design report. So you'll see what the facility, what we propose as a facility, what it looks like, how it's going to work. And this will be before the report goes final. So at every step of the process, the community has a chance to review what we're doing, understand the decisions that are being made, and then wait and inform those decisions as they're being made. Our intent here is not necessarily to be able to incorporate every piece of advice we get from the community. There are certain things that this facility has to do, and we have to make sure it operates safely and reliably and can work for our operations and maintenance staff. But we want you to understand why those decisions were made. We don't want to surprise you with any of this. And so that's our intent. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to talk to you more about that. I want to give you a couple examples of what we've done in different situations so you can see what King County's done to incorporate their facilities into existing designs. But I'll answer Shaz's question first.
Well, just an, I guess, advisory. So the October 25th meeting is concurrent with a large candidates forum, which is also being held at Youngstown Cultural Arts Center, which has been widely advertised, so which includes school board. And
okay. Well, it's important that we have this meeting.
You'll have some competition.
And that's okay. I mean, I would say that of the 2 meetings next week for the community to consider attending, the 29th is the one where we're really going to be doing a lot of the work that I think will be of interest. We'll love to have you the 25th, but there's always competing priorities. And I think the 29th, if you had to choose, the 29th is probably the more advantageous meeting to attend.
Going back a little bit, we're going to be starting this design coordination with the community without knowing at that point what the boring samples are, because as I asked earlier, if the boring was going to say, okay, we can't do it, they say, no, that's just to kind of position this someplace. So we're going to be talking about possible things with the community without knowing yet what the boring samples are going to say.
My understanding, and I'll refer to Dan, but my understanding is we'll have some preliminary information about that. Dan, if you want to speak more to the point, my understanding is we'll have some preliminaries on geotech. We'll definitely have more as we go on. But again, the 29th meeting is really conceptual. It's to talk about what people would like to see and how we can merge what the facility has to do for the county and to protect the environment with what the community would like to see. And then that's the first step. We can be back at this design, and we'll be back at this design a number of times after that. So
when the geotechs are in the field, obviously they're taking logs daily as they do these logs. There's a specific intent as to why these borings are as deep as they are. They're looking for a specific layer down there that they want to know where that is. If they don't hit it, they'll let us know, and we'll know that. But regardless of that, you can engineer around a lot of this, what's down there. We can engineer the foundations and the structures to allow them to work. We're not overly concerned. We think we know what's there, but this is a verification. And we will get...
Okay, so we're going to be conceptualizing based on what we think is there.
Well, what you're going to conceptualize is the structure and not the...
What it looks like above ground.
Basically, the features that you want to incorporate as a final structure. The things that are underground, they're going to be engineered correctly. So you're not going to see... we're not asking... I don't think we're asking you to go with that level of detail. We're looking more for your input on that.
I think one of the things for this workshop that's important is that we just hear from you what's important, what your values are for this project, how you want to ultimately see how we can work together to find something that's going to work for you. But engineering, candidly, I think it's fair to say we wouldn't be looking for a lot of feedback on the engineering work. And we have people
I'm not talking about feedback on the engineering work. I'm talking about, we talked about where you're going to put the things is going to be based on the engineering work.
Well, in part, but I mean, I think Dan spoke. There are ways to engineer the structures that we can. We don't anticipate that there are going to be soil conditions that are going to be. And Dan, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that we're confident that there's nothing we can't engineer around. But maybe I'm not an activist. I should not be speaking.
Well, if you just look in the area, the existing pump station has been built there. We're likely not going to hit anything that's going to surprise us. That pump station isn't as deep as we're going to be. It's close, I think. I'm not exactly sure how deep that pump station is. I don't think it's 40 feet. I'm sure it's not. But in any case, I don't think we're expecting any surprises in that. Eric, I don't know if you're expecting anything not to be engineered around. It's more just,
I don't anticipate anything from the borings and the geotechnical information we've already seen. I think the primary issues probably relate just to construction, what needs to be done, the depth of the shoring is required. The other issue that we're dealing with, this large underground tank, like what was described, taking that large tank, putting that underground, we'll be putting that below the groundwater table. So it's like putting a great big boat in the ground. The groundwater wants to push it up. So we need the geotechnical information to help determine what's required to hold the boat down.
so we need to, they'll monitor those wells to get the level of groundwater over the year.
Is there any possibility that it would be half in, half out? Like 20 feet above ground and 20 feet below ground,
The tank,
the tank?
I think there's an intent of that at all.
Well, not an intent, but is there a possibility?
Well, it wouldn't be able to be filled by gravity feed
Yeah,
there.
the use of gravity is pretty important.
Pardon?
The use of gravity is pretty important for the design.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sort of related to her question, but the existing odor control stack is like right next to Beach Drive and sends a waft of really pungent air down towards Lincoln Park, which most of us are well familiar with. The new odor control will be more like the 53rd Avenue station, which produces really clean air that you can stand on top of.
That's why there's new odor control.
Exactly.
Right. So, but I guess my question is, because you're changing the location of the odor control, will the location of the stack that comes above the ground also change then?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit better opportunity to mask odors in foliage and things like that, rather than send it right down the residential path.
And it's a great way to infect the
Speaking of
staff
masking.
you're talking
So
about.
that's your segue, Doc.
Yeah, thank you, Chaz. Your check is in the mail. So one of the things that I wanted to show you tonight is some examples of how we have masked or blended in our facilities into other neighborhoods and other areas. Sorry to block.
That's all right.
Thanks, Chaz. And these are a couple of examples. These are all examples of storage tanks that King County has built in places that are used frequently as either they're in parks or they're actually, those are all in parks. One, if you look at the one with the sort of silver vents, that's a storage tank in Myrtle Edwards Park. And it's right by the Denny Way regulator. People run by it every day. The other two photos are actually up in Shoreline, and that's Blowing Creek Park. We have a storage tank underneath that sort of top rectangular picture. And the reason I save this for last, that tree there is the stack. That's how it was masked to blend in with the surrounding surroundings. So that we actually worked with a sculptor and design artist from the zoo, because they're called tree snakes. They build them all the time for birds when they have raptors come. So we worked with a design consultant familiar with this kind of thing to blend it in. And that's the sort of thing that we're used to doing. We've done it before, and we're committed to finding a way to doing it with you. So I really look forward to working with you. We all do, to come up with a design that's going to work for the community. And the first step is October 29th. Hope to see you. I think my contact information is at the end here. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, so again, we talked about 29th is important. That's the first of many steps. There's a lot of different places to get information. We will be announcing the members of the Design Advisory Group soon. I can tell you that there's one in your midst right now, Chaz. I hope I haven't stolen your thunder, but...
No, I'll be representing Morgan Community Association again.
Great. And there'll be more information about that in the upcoming meeting. And again, my contact information. I am probably your primary conduit to the project team. That everyone on this team has an expertise on this project that I am happy to bring to answer your questions. I may not have the answer the first time, but I need to talk to them to make sure I'm right. But I will make sure to work on your behalf to get the information you want about the project. And this process is sort of our first commitment to doing that.
Since the 29th is a long session, as you can see, it's from 9:33. I wonder if we should just give an overview of the kind of things that will happen that day, and the fact that we'll be providing lunch. I think it's important to know.
It's true, there will be food,
Food, drinks.
More than just grapes and cookies.
Not just, yeah. But just, I don't know if it's you or Penny or even Chris wants to speak to kind of the basic flow that day, the kinds of things that we'll, be engaged with.
Well, I'll speak to it, and if I get too far off, there are people in the room, but my understanding of the way we're having it set up right now is that the first, I sort of think of it as 3 segments. The first segment is to go over again some of the information we talked about tonight, just the baselines of what CSOs are, for folks that maybe haven't been in tune yet, but want to be involved in the design process. The second part will be Eric and Dan and their team talking a little bit about what the facility has to do from the county's perspective, what some of the constraints are. And then, so that's the first part. The second part is going to be hearing from the community about what's important to those assembled in making this an asset to the community, how we can integrate it well, what kind of things are important. And the third, then we have lunch, and then the afternoon is spent trying to merge the ideas we heard from the neighbors with the needs for the facility like this, and in a brainstorming session. And there'll be a number of different exercises. We'll be working in small groups so that community members are working with team members, and there's an exchange of information between the two. And all of that will be, all of those efforts will be wrapped up into summaries and reports that will be available to read, and then will be used as a source of information for the design team when they go back and think really about establishing an initial design, which again, I said we'd share in a few weeks. Okay?
I think the one thing to add that makes the design charrette really interesting and fun to participate in is there will be people there who are actually skilled drawers, they call them, like architects and landscape architects that can actually pick up the colored pencils and do some sketching to try and turn those values and constraints, put them all together and come up with some ideas on paper to look at. So it's not just about words, but it's also about images and visualizing things. So that's a fun part of the charrette.
In the design workshop, are you just focused on the one side of the street, or are you looking at Logan Park itself? Is there any part of this design that's going to impact Logan Park? I'm
So,
just curious the extent of that.
I'll give what I think is the answer, but I think we're spending most of our time over there because what we intend to do in the park itself will be below ground. We won't see any of those facilities. It'll look just like it looks now.
Okay.
We know that the major integration is on the other side of the street, so we're focusing our efforts there.
Okay.
Just a caution, that'll be the last day the divide up is closed, and things may have settled down, but those of you that don't live in West Seattle, may want to leave early, who knows.
I invited them to all stay at your house overnight.
We have thought about that. We as a project team are aware of it, and we'll.
Well, you got from what,
Woodinville.
Woodinville to McKinney last night, I presume in light speed time. So.
I would have done better if it wasn't for that freight train chat. So I was freight train right across first. I was sitting there. Anyway, yeah, so we'll figure it out. We'll make sure to get there. Thanks all for coming.